Welcome. In this video, we're going to discuss the key pointers for Chapter 3, Ethics and Social Responsibility. As I mentioned multiple times, you cannot simply skip the learning objectives at the beginning of each chapter. Please go them through. As long as you understand them, the whole chapter is covered. So if you go to the beginning of Chapter 3, they're talking about determinants of civil society. So they explain about 80 different concepts as part of the civil manner. Social control, behavior norms, and economic ethics and laws. I just simply put a summary there. If you read them through, there's nothing complicated. They're very straightforward. So based on this concept, I like to apply it for some of the concept like what are some behavioral norms that are presented in the classroom or in your college or university. So for example, I put a professionalism as a 5% of your grading criteria in this class. So I cannot think a better term than the professionalism, especially for you guys, because you guys, after you guys graduate, you guys are going for the industry and starting your career path, right? So that's the idea about it. So let me explain about some of the ethical theories. I know theories sometimes can be very boring, so I try to make it short and simple and well focused, okay? So deontological theory is talking about some of the civil duty as a societal members. I've seen a kind of newsflash talking about the other day, a neighborhood running into the house under the fire and saving those people inside the house. So it is not required by the law, but people actually they did it to save those people in danger, right? So that can be a good example for deontological theory concept. The second thing they're talking about is the utilitarian ethical theory. Simply put, it's about greatest goods for greatest number of people. So, for example, like medical insurance providing the benefits for maximum number of people, right? Those kind of things. The third thing the third theory is talking about casuist ethical theory. So when they try to judge any kind of ethical dilemma, they try to bring some of the similar things happening in the past and try to apply the same method. But sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't because, for example, if the past event also had a dilemma and they try to put it in the same manner, that creates more dilemma and conflict. Besides, as time goes by, especially nowadays, everything is kind of changing very fast, right? People's perception can be changed, the whole society culture can be changed. So if you try to simply put a kind of same cookie and cutter kind of standard that happened in the past for what's going on in the current situation, that can create a more conflict and a kind of chaos, right? Sometimes. And the next one is talking about moral relativism. So the textbook put a very good example and very short and good example like a man tried to steal a loaf of bread to feed their family being starved. So if that is the case, can you say his behavior is kind of bad? We shouldn't, should we lock him up in the prison? No, it's not, right? The last one is talking about the virtue ethics. So if you go to page 34, it explains well about some of the kind of exemplary kind of virtues you can say. A lot of people say in the kind of a daily life expression like patience is virtue, right? So those kind of things. So so far we've been talking about some of the ethical concept for general society, right? But specifically in this class, we should talk about some of the ethics for in the business, right? The key idea here is about corporate social responsibility or CSR. So if you go to page 38, it explains well about the basic concept about it. So it's about the business concern for society's welfare. So you might all know about the brand name Patagonia, right? The outdoor brand. Excuse me. So Their jacket has been very popular, those employees working in the Wall Street companies. So it's a certain point in time, Patagonia announced that if your company is not doing any good for corporate social responsibility or sustainability, we're not going to sell our jacket to your company anymore. So main goal of the business is not about being ethical, right? The main goal of any type of business is about maximizing shareholder wealth, maximizing net profit, and then maximizing shareholders shareholders wealth. So pretty much what the Patagonia did or is doing is going against that idea. So sometimes it create a conflict between the main goal of the business or what's the good about the society. But anyway, if you look at the next one is about 84% of North American shoppers claim that they will pay extra for the products and services committed to the positive social and environmental impact. Right? So although Patagonia is doing such thing, made such an announcement, I'm sure they create more profit out of their business. And also, they can create a very positive publicity to their customers on society, right? So that's the idea about it. The next one is talking about the example for Ben & Jerry's ice cream and JetBlue. If you go to the last page of chapter 3, you can find an example about it. I know the Ben & Jerry had some kind of E. coli case a couple of years ago, but hey, separate from that, they're actually doing their best when it comes to acting on corporate social responsibility. JetBlue is the same manner as well. Employees working more than 40,000 hours to work for a non-profit organization. Okay. So in that regard, you can find the concept of B Corps. Okay. So basically, it's talking about some of the criteria. They made a criteria based on how much the companies make effort to work on the corporate social responsibility. You can easily find those kind of concepts and names if you Google it. So as part of the kind of extension and application, I brought the idea about the price gouging. You can find the definition here. So basically, it's about the jacking up the price, the product and services they're selling to the community, societal, to the customers during the civil emergency. Civil emergency can be some of the example like hurricane or tornado, right? So during that time, they jacking up the rate of the product they're selling to the community or customers. So I put questions about, is it really bad? Then how much would it be bad? You can watch the video if you just copy and paste this link on the web page. Let me show the video anyway, right?
A hurricane hits your town and the power is out. Your child is diabetic and you need power to keep her insulin refrigerated. You're desperate. But perhaps you're in luck. I have an electrical generator that I'm willing to sell you, and you have the $800 that generators like mine typically cost. The only problem is, I don't want to sell it to you for $800. I want $1,300. Now, as it turns out, my offer would be illegal in a majority of U.S. states, about 34 of which have statutes that prohibit price gouging, a practice that's usually defined as raising prices on certain kinds of goods to an unfair or excessively high level during an emergency. So there's really no question about what the law would do to me if I made an offer like this to you. But even if the law is clear, the moral status of price gouging is not. Is price gouging always immoral? And whether it is or not, should it be illegal? Let's look at the question of morality first. Is asking $1,300 for the generator morally wrong? Of course, you'd rather buy it from me for $800, but there are 3 reasons why my charging a higher price isn't obviously wrong. First, remember, you don't have to buy it from me for $1,300. If that's more than you think the generator is worth, you're free to walk on by. If you do decide to pay, it's because you believe you're getting more value out of the generator than you do from the $1,300 you gave up for it. In other words, you're coming away from the deal with more than you gave up. Second, Ask yourself what would happen if I did charge only $800 for the generator. Remember, you aren't the only person who needs electric power in this situation. If the price was lower, would the generator still have been there when you tried to buy it? Or would someone else have snatched it up before you ever had a chance? This leads directly to the third point, which is that high prices do more than just line sellers' pockets. They also affect how buyers and sellers behave. For buyers, high prices reduce demand and encourage conservation. They lead buyers to ask themselves whether they really need that generator or hotel room, or whether they can do without. And by doing so, they allow at least some of those resources to be conserved for other people who might need them more, and therefore are willing to pay more. And for sellers, high prices encourage people to bring more goods to where they're needed. If generators can be bought in an area not affected by the hurricane for $800, and resold later for $1,300, that creates a profit incentive for people to bring generators from where they're less needed to where they're more needed, to get them to where they'll do more good for people who need them most. All of this leads to a surprising conclusion. Even someone who can't afford to pay $1,300 for a generator benefits from a system in which sellers are allowed to charge that price. That's because the profit motive that system creates encourages competition, which increases supply, and ultimately drives down prices to a more affordable level for everyone. Now, it's true that when price gouging is legal, some people won't be able to afford the higher prices that result. But ask yourself, what alternative institutions would do better? When price gouging is prohibited, goods usually go to whoever shows up first. If you care about distributive justice, is that really a better system? I think there are good reasons to doubt that price gouging is immoral. But suppose you're not convinced. Suppose you think price gouging is exploitative and wrong. Should it be illegal? The answer, even if we assume that price gouging is immoral, is almost certainly that it should not be illegal. If price gouging is wrong, it's because it hurts people in vulnerable situations. But then the last thing you want to do is hurt those vulnerable people even more. Remember, the only reason price gouging occurs is because a disaster causes demand for certain goods to go up or supply to go down, with the result that there isn't enough stuff to go around. Anti-gouging laws don't do anything to address this underlying shortage. In fact, they make it worse by destroying incentives for conservation and increased supply. So even if you think that price gouging is morally wrong and that merchants should refuse to engage in it, making it illegal doesn't make sense. It hurts the very people who need our help most.
So as you can see, it is talking about it's not just about the things that the kind of any kind of law or any kind of general perception. It's talking about some of the kind of scientific matters between the supply and demand. How much by jacking up the kind of a price, it could be sold to someone they need those product and service the most, right? So that's the basic idea of that what the speaker is talking about. So you might have a different idea. For example, if you work as a general manager at a certain hotel, and in that area, a lot of people's houses got flooded by a hurricane. If that happens, a lot of people have no other choice but to stay in their hotel rooms. So if that happens, what do you want to do about it? Do you simply want to jack up the rate to maximize the revenue? Or you want to just take care of your hotel's reputation by cutting up the price, right? So there's nothing like right or wrong answer. As a person in charge to make a decision, you got to think about it, right? And the next one is talking about, I'd like to show you, is a Theo chocolate. So let me show you this.
It's almost sinful. But creating the perfect bar at this Seattle chocolate factory is about more than just the ingredients on the wrapper.
I feel that everybody in the whole supply chain, all the way back to the farmers, should be better off as a result of this delicious food that we use to share with the people we love.
So these are These are the beans.
These are the beans. This is cacao.
At Theo Chocolate, owner Joe Winnie pays farmers 2 to 3 times more than the going rate to buy this cacao from the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC.
Where does cocoa come from? People think it comes from Switzerland or little orange people. It's coming from farmers in Africa and in Indonesia and in Central and South America.
Winnie believes that Americans will be willing to pay more for chocolate if they know that, in turn, impoverished farmers will earn more. Of all places, why Congo?
Why Congo? Well, it was really Ben Affleck's fault.
Yes, that Ben Affleck.
Like this?
Yeah, see, that's really well fermented. This isn't.
Earlier this year, we joined Ben Affleck and Joe Winnie on a trip to the DRC. Cacao can only grow within a narrow climate zone close to the equator. In 2009, Affleck started a charity called Eastern Congo Initiative to spur economic development in this war-torn region. 5 million people have died here due to decades of conflict.
As I was reading, I just sort of stumbled upon some of these statistics, and I was struck not only by the numbers, but by the fact that, I hadn't heard about it.
So Affleck decided to use his celebrity as a sort of currency to attract investment. He led a small group of philanthropists, protected by armed guards, through jungles where cacao trees thrived and farmers struggled.
The cocoa industry here has potential if the value can be increased.
For the last 2 years, Affleck's Eastern Congo Initiative has worked with Winnie and local groups to train farmers to improve the crop. Cacao grows in these greenish-yellow pods that are cracked open to harvest.
It's quite slimy, huh?
It is, but when you suck on it, it's absolutely delicious.
It doesn't taste like chocolate
Not at all, does it?
It tastes like passion fruit or something. Theo Chocolate is now committed to buy 340 tons of cacao from the DRC.
Yeah, this is really good quality.
Creating a dependable export market.
We've brought these people together. They're selling to a chocolate company in the United States. Those markets have been completely closed off to them in the past. And it's not just aid, it's investment.
Investment in an area not far from where rebels recently took over a regional capital. But cacao is known as a militia-resistant crop. The beans are not usually stolen by rebels because they're worthless without all the processing to turn them into chocolate.
We have security guards around us. There have been attacks recently. This is a tough place to do business.
It is, but it's also a place that really needs this kind of business.
Business in Seattle is a little sweeter these days. Theo is raising money for charity with its $5 Congo bar, which may make indulging in this piece of chocolate
It's delicious. It's really
just a little less sinful.
You've never tasted chocolate? We're trying to make sure that there's a connection between the farmer and the consumer, because when they care about each other, that's when real change starts to happen. What do you think?
Okay.
It's okay? Just okay?
So as you can see that a certain chocolate company can do good for certain companies, certain reason, war-torn or reason for those people in poverty. So that's the kind of basic idea about corporate social responsibility. And also I put a questions about it than CSR and marketing mixed purpose, what economics play in the case of Theo Chocolate. So I like to say about as an answer for that, it's going to be something. So you create a positive publicity for those for your product you are selling to the market, right? And I'm sure it also has a positive impact for maximizing their revenue and profit as well, right? So that's the idea of the whole. It contains a very good focus on chapter 3, and that's it for the point of focus chapter 3. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay.